And we are back. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all so much for listening. This is simultaneously the Simon and Friends podcast, audio version, but also if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for being here on YouTube. This is the Box Score Network YouTube channel. This is part of the Simon and Friends podcast. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and also follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts as well. This is the NFL Draft War Room series. This is something Ben and I have done for 3 years now. Done it with a couple different co-hosts, but first time just one-on-one for me and Ben, where we want to get inside the minds of the decision makers of these NFL teams. So we want to think about it from the GM perspective, the owner perspective, and the coaching perspective of some of these conversations teams are having in their respective war rooms when it comes to the draft. So, Ben, here for this first one that we're doing on Combine Week, it's also ahead of NFL free agency. This is the earliest we've done this. So, we're also going to mix in a little bit of free agency cap talk while we do this. Um, but basically, we're going to go through the AFC North and NFC North teams. Ben and I are each the GM for four of the eight teams. And then the other person's kind of cosplaying as the owner or coach, whoever's mind they want to kind of take over for a little bit. Um, I would like to take over the wallet of the owner, obviously, and probably the sleep schedule too. But we're going to each be the GM and present our plan for the offseason, both from free agency and draft, kind of lay out round by round or day by day in the draft what we like, some strategies, a couple players we like, but mostly just this is our strategy, right? Right before the combine, teams get in big meetings forever and do this. They suss out like, okay, here's what we want to do here, here's what we want to do there, this position group, that contract, day two picks, potential trades, yada yada. We're doing that for each team alternating weeks, me and Ben, over the next 8 weeks until the NFL draft. We're here to do the NFC North now. I am representing the Green Bay Packers. And let's dive right into it. Seems like Jair Alexander, guys, is done here in Green Bay, and that's fine. It's a good cornerback class in free agency and early on in the draft. And after releasing Alexander, we'll have nearly $53 million in effective cap space. This also allowed defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley to really remake the room how he wants this offseason. Eric Stokes is also a free agent. He played a little over half the snaps at outside corner. So really, Hafley can do what he wants here. Um, Carlton Davis, Travarius Ward, DJ Reed, Byron Murphy, Christian Fulton, Asante Samuel Jr., Jordan Lewis are some free agents available, just to name a few. And it's also not a bad edge rusher free agent class if you're just looking for a rotational guy, not a starter, but just a guy to rotate in and be a little extra juice. There's some decent names here that you can get if you want to take another flyer on a Chase Young. If you want to go pay Josh Sweat off of that Super Bowl run, Azeez Ojulari is also a fun kind of mixin that we could do there. Um, but I want to save our first round pick on a defensive tackle with real penetrating pass rush juice. So if I can spend my money on edge rusher and corner, these positions that are deeper in free agency than they are in the draft, then I want to do that. And obviously, edge rusher isn't deeper in free agency, but corner and some of these other positions that I'll talk about, I want to do that. So the question for who to re-sign, external free agents, the big ones are Josh Myers at center and linebacker Isaiah McDuffie. And we have the cap space. And I think based on this draft, I think those are the right guys to re-sign. Um, I'll just mention it. It's not going to happen. We could afford to swing big and try to bring Devontae Adams back, but it's not. We're not going to do that. It's just not in our DNA. But we could do it. We could afford it. But looking at the finances, we could give Myers a even top five center contract if we really needed to. We could bring McDuffie back. We could bring two defensive pieces and an Ojolari and a Charvarius Ward, let's say, um, and still have some flexibility to do something a little bit bigger if we wanted. But in the draft, I'm looking at defensive line that I mentioned in the first round, specifically a pass rusher, Shamar Stewart, Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant. Those are my top three. Some guy that can really get in the backfield. My next three picks, I am looking at an additional receiver. I'm looking at a corner, and I'm looking at another guy on the defensive line, not in the same spot as my first round pick. So if I get Stewart, I'll look at an interior guy in the mid rounds. And if I get a Nolan, I'm looking at someone more on the end. Um, my corner, whoever I take, should be able to play on the outside. So I'm looking at Trey Amos, I'm looking at Azariah Thomas and Maxwell Harrison here. Wide receiver, any flavor will work. Just take another swing with Christian Watson being in the last year of his deal and coming off of another injury. My later picks, I'm throwing another dart at offensive line, as we always do, another linebacker, and maybe another tight end as well. But the main thing is letting Hafley in year two. It was a pretty successful year one on defense, but I'm letting him kind of add to the defensive roster that he wants, um, free agency and draft. But I'm bringing Josh Myers back to the Packers.
All right. I think I've got my first contentious point of the evening,
Let's go.
but I also have maybe the thing I love most that you said too on the
Ooh,
evening. So which door you want to enter first, man?
contentious.
Okay.
Let's get
Okay.
feisty.
All right. Can I talk you into letting Josh Myers go
Probably.
and drafting? Okay, maybe it's not as contentious as I thought. Darn it! And maybe drafting like a Gray Zabel, for instance, or if not him specifically, then like you mentioned, maybe you didn't mention, but
A McLaughlin, a Wilson.
yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere. And are you at all interested in that, or are you pretty locked in on Myers here?
No, I'm not too locked in on Myers.
Okay, all right,
Myers has been up and down. He was rougher earlier in his career. It showed when he didn't play recently, right? The physicality. But I mean, the infrastructure here, we are just so good at drafting and developing guys. The reason why Myers specifically was a hang up for me is the succession plan that we had a couple years ago at center because we want to slowly build this thing out, right? We don't usually just roll into a guy's rookie year and throwing him on the line, right? Rasheed
right,
Walker waited,
right.
oh, was supposed to wait a year, but Bakhtiari was hurt. Um, Jordan Morgan started this year for the most part, so we're speeding up the process a little bit. But Zach Tom was going to be the center, but he was so good at right tackle, and obviously he wants to stay at right tackle for
Big miss by
financial
me, by the
reasons.
way.
Um, that he's gonna stay there. That's gonna be a spot. So because at center we didn't have a real succession plan already in place, I don't necessarily want to throw a rookie into that. But we could always pair one of these rookies, especially because we're not. I will say my one pushback to this is we're not going to get Zabel. I don't think he's going to make it to us with our second round pick, and I don't. We're not. We're using our first round pick on a defensive lineman.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
and honestly, I don't even know if I'd use my second round pick on the position because we're so good at developing it, and I want another corner.
okay.
So then we're talking mid round picks. But at that point, if you told me let's get Bradley Bozeman and Seth McLaughlin out of Ohio State, even though he's coming off an injury. Let's say Jared Wilson out of Georgia is also coming off an injury. Jared Wilson and Bradley Bozeman instead of paying Myers.
Right.
We could do that. But the sheer fact that we could afford Myers from a cap perspective, I would rather replace a Rasheed Walker at left tackle next year probably than Myers this year would probably be my preference. But I
Not
wouldn't
my
push back
best.
too hard.
Okay, fair enough. Not my. I would like to do that. Because I do trust. That's another thing. In some organizations, I trust our developmental ability. I would rather not re-sign a so-so guy and just trust us to redevelop somebody else. Not a great look for me though. 2 years ago, when I was like, Zach Tom's okay. I would love to just push him inside. He's been a bright spot out there.
Love Zach Tom.
You're like, no, no, Tom, man, do
It's
it.
also the Packers. You could just institutionally just be like, that
Also
guy, he'll
true.
work out. Whatever.
Decades of proven experience there. One thing I like before I get the thing I love, I would like to, and I've said this more than once, I would love to go into that free agent cornerback well,
Hmm.
grab a guy there. It would not cost a lot, but we've got the cap space to do it easy. The thing I love, okay, I'm Halfley. I don't, I'm gonna role play the defensive
Right?
coordinator,
Love it.
man. I am coming into your office every day, all right? Every single day, and table pounding and back slapping and everything, okay? Here's what I want if I'm Halfley, all right? I want Shamar Stewart in the first round,
Hmm.
okay? And then I want Donovan Ezeraku, the edger out of
Mm.
Boston College, somewhere in the second or wherever we think he'll end
Yeah,
up.
it'll be
Maybe late
second.
second. I
It'll
don't
be
know.
second. Hmm.
I want both those guys. All
Mm.
right, not
Hmm.
one. I want both of them. And if for some reason you can't work out both of them, I'll also entertain the idea of Princely Uman Milan out there
Mm.
or
Hmm.
Landon Jackson from Arkansas. But
Hmm.
oh my gosh, this defensive line draft is so good. We could use a couple because Rashawn Gary just isn't the edger he used to be.
Yep.
Still can do some stuff, but just not as consistent. And then Kenny Clark on the inside is good, but he's not necessarily dominant, even though he has breakout games and he's consistent. He's not just dominant in there. So I would love if I'm Halfley, like you are my best friend now, man. Like you the GL. This is Christmas for the next 5 years for me. Just get me Shamar Stewart and either Ezeraku or one of those other guys, and I am so happy, man.
My my only and I mean I like both those players. My only concern is I really think we need someone in the interior. Now, if you tell me you think Shamar Stewart can maybe, I don't want to say guys need to add weight all the time, but if you think he can add another 10 pounds or so and keep the speed and be an interior 4-3 defensive lineman, I'm all for it. And he could play next to Kenny Clark, and then you got Lucas Van Ness on one side and either Uma Milan or Ezraku on the other side, then I'm with that. But we just traditionally have the bigger defensive tackles. And I see Stewart, and maybe you just see Stewart as a end or as a tackle, but I see him as an end. So I would
Yeah, I do as
if
well.
if I
Yeah,
if I got Stewart because I still like Stewart in the first round. If I got Stewart in the first round, then round two, I mean, I'm looking. Can I get a? Does Darius Alexander fall to me there? Does somebody like that? But I mean, I guess it wouldn't be necessary, and you might as well then just kind of go all out with the defensive ends there, since I did say we could do Stewart at the end. So yeah, I'll consider another defensive end. But if I can get Walter Nolan in the first round, and then I can get I'm gonna pull this one out because I know you love this player, JT Tuimalau from Ohio State in the second round
right, right.
as a one inside one outside. That would be I would come back to you and say, or even Uma Milan, right? You could do Uma Milan still
Yeah,
right there.
yeah.
Um, I would counter you with that. If I can go interior first round and then go edge round two.
Truthfully, I'll be happy with any two defensive linemen. The biggest reason I went Ezeraku was because he does have the kind of the edge push
Yeah.
that Gary also has provided for a number of years, just that kind of speed off the edge. But also because Halfley coached him at BC, so I know Halfley would love a chance to kind of
Mm-hmm.
link back up. But I got to say, my favorite out of everything you've said and I've said here is Shamar Stewart, and I do
Mm-hmm.
view him as a defensive end,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily just a pure speed edge, but a
Mm-hmm.
legit defensive end. He can move inside because a lot of them SEC guys do,
Yeah.
but that's not his mainstay. He's going to be
Yeah.
out there on edge. So ultimately, I would love to get Stewart in the first round, and then any defensive guy you want to give me in the second round as well, but probably one of the defensive tackles. Yeah, I'll be totally happy with that, whether it's Tyler Williams, TJ Sanders, Derek Harmon, whoever you think we can get.
But yeah, as the coordinator, over ask, and that way when it falls just short of that, you're still happy with it. Good call by you.
I ain't
Uh,
gonna be happy unless I get too bad. I can tell
we'll find a second one in there somewhere. We'll make it happen. Maybe we'll trade for Trey Hendrickson. Um,
yes, done.
let's go to your first team. Who are you doing first to the NFC North?
I don't even know, man. I'm so excited about Halfley and his defensive lineman. I forgot. Let's go to the Vikings. Okay, I got my Vikings gear on tonight, so
Great.
let's roll over and do Minnesota. Okay, so if you're the Vikings, you have a ton of cap space to work with, which is roughly 60, slightly over $60 million. But you've also got a bunch of free agents and snaps walking out the door.
Hmm.
So, you have to make a choice. You either re-sign your own guys, you go get some new guys using that money, and you can mix and match, right? In a lot of cases, people talk about, well, it's not real cap space. Well, it is if you already didn't like those guys walking out the door.
Yeah.
If you weren't really excited about them being on the team next year anyway, then yeah, you do have legit cap space to work with. So
Hmm.
it depends on what you want. All right, here's some of the names walking out the door. Not even all of them. Cam Robinson over at tackle. Sam Darnold, of course, everybody knows about. Byron Murphy at corner. Cam Bynum at safety. Shaquille Griffin at corner. Dalton Reisner there at guard. And Aaron Jones at running back. Honestly, I think you can make cases for any of those guys. I would personally love to keep Byron Murphy myself by the time I look at age and coverage ability. The Vikings have a lot of guys who are flexible and kind of the term is Flores merchants, I think. But Murphy to me is the cover guy that I don't really want to see him walk out the door, and I can afford to keep him. And I feel confident if he hits the market, other teams are going to want his coverage ability. So I want to keep Byron Murphy, and we'll use up some of our cap space there. Sam Darnold, I will let walk. I think we're going to have a little JJ McCarthy discussion here in a few minutes, but I will let Sam Darnold go. I'm willing to let Cam Bynum go. I don't hate Bynum, but I don't love him either. I don't really want to hand him the money, to be honest. Shaquille Griffin, I'm interested in keeping around, but only if the money's right. I don't want to just pay top dollar, so I'm willing to let him kind of test and see what's out there, and then if we lose him, I can live with that, but we'll see. That's kind of it on the top free agents there for me. Let me get some of the notes here. I would enjoy a defensive back signing. We're letting a lot of snaps walk out the door. I know I can draft a guy, but there's other guys out there on other teams that I think coverage wise would fit with us. And I trust Flores' schemes, but I don't want him constantly having to scheme up zero blitzes all the time because he doesn't have cover guys who can hang on long enough to do some of this stuff. So I want to make sure he's got cover guys so he can blitz the heck or do the front to back crap whenever he feels like it, not because he feels like he has to.
Hmm.
Is what I want to give him as a GM. So better guys in pass coverage. I want to upgrade the middle of the offensive line. I don't think that's any big secret there. We got the bookend tackles we're fine on. If I can upgrade the offensive line in the middle, I think this is a good draft to do it. And I would love to spice up defensive tackle, to be honest. We got three guys there with Tillery, Phillips, and Bullard, who are okay. They're fine. They're getting the job done. They're good, solid pail workers. But I would love to, in a draft like this, I would love to bring a guy who can spice it up a little bit. Let's upgrade a little bit here. So I want to do that. I've only got 4 draft picks here. Okay.
I want a T-bone, want some ribs. I'd like some nice potatoes. Let's get a bottle of that
Yes.
nice champagne.
Yes.
I have $6.
Can you have me the kids menu, please?
Any bagels you threw out last night? Yeah, that's where you're at.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I only get one shot at a player I really like in the
Pretty
first
much.
round,
Yeah,
right?
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. After that, maybe I can pick up. There are a couple safeties in the third round. I think
Hmm.
would help us out.
Yep.
So I think that's a legit thing. Let me run down some names here that I would love for the Vikings to get with that first round pick. Okay. Or trade back. I listen. I don't mean to poo poo the draft here. Everybody's saying trade back. Like literally
Yep.
everybody I podcast with, everybody I listen to. You may not be able to trade back. If you can, great. If not, oh well. Here's some names. Kenneth Grant, mentioned him before. Siobhan Ravel, haven't mentioned him. Love him. I've already mentioned Johnny Barron. We've mentioned Walter Nolan, Tyler Booker, Gray Zabel, and even somewhere back there, Nick Emanwari. Those are all names I think fit the Vikings really well. I would love to hit some of that stuff. So, unless I've forgotten something here, I think that's it. Uh, really want to fix up the cover guys. interior offensive line, then defensive tackle.
Putting Eamon Wari and Josh Metellus on the same team
Yeah,
is the most fun and bizarre outcome, and I'm here for it.
right.
Um,
Bizarre is the word. Yes.
let's just you said you want to get less weird for Flores. Let's lean in, man. Let's get more weird. Let Yeah, let's freaking do it.
I don't
I
know who's
love
going to cover the wide receivers under
it
that
doesn't matter.
scenario,
It
but
doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Whatever, man. This team had Steph Gilmore and Shaq Griffin doing it in 2024. My God. Okay, let's rein it back in here. Let's rein it back in. I'm the owner. Ziggy Wilf. Don't know if Ziggy's how you pronounce it, but that's what I'm going with. Who's our quarterback in 2025? That's you said a lot there. I would like to know who the week one starting quarterback is in 2025.
yeah. So let's start with JJ McCarthy. That'll be the plan. One reason I don't want to pay Darnold isn't just because he kind of sort of did what we thought he might do and turned back into a little bit of a pumpkin right there at the end of the season. But the other reason is everybody told us the Vikings loved McCarthy before he got injured.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Vikings love McCarthy so darn much, why in the world would we go and pay Sam Darnold? There's
Totally.
just no reason to. So, and on a personal note, I wasn't the biggest McCarthy guy. But if the Vikings love him,
Mm-hmm.
and they've got literally the best setup for a quarterback that you could have right now, with all-world receiver Justin Jefferson and a good tight end and a good Addison receiver
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
good bookend tackles and one of the better play callers in the league.
Mm-hmm.
If McCarthy can't succeed here, he might as well never play any more football because he
Mm-hmm.
won't succeed anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
That's the plan at quarterback. I do want to bring in a bridger, a
Mm-hmm.
cheap bridge
Mm-hmm.
quarterback. Because if for any reason at all, I feel like McCarthy just isn't ready to go at the start of the season, I don't want to just throw him out there
Mm-hmm.
because this is his rookie year.
Right.
So I do want to bring in a veteran to
Okay.
kind of give him a soft landing there.
Great. Um, so now we have to start prioritizing, right? So that let's start with the draft. Four
Yes.
picks, one pick in the first round. If you could pick one name that realistically is there at 24 to support a team where you want to not remake the identity of the defense, but maybe streamline a little bit, but you also want McCarthy to succeed. Who's the one guy at 24 you're really gunning for?
Yeah, and you said on defense, right? Or
Either way, you have two
okay,
things you're trying to accomplish,
okay.
right? You're trying to set up McCarthy for success, but you're also trying to streamline the defense a little bit. Who accomplishes the most value for us in 2025 and beyond with that pick at 24?
For me, it's Siobhan Rebel. That
Okay.
ultimately is the one I keep coming back to. He's a cover guy, a legit cover guy, an aggressive, legit cover guy, which Flores would also like.
Mm-hmm.
And you've always got Metellus, who's Mr. Flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
doing all kinds of crap, which kind of even though Metellus himself isn't the greatest cover guy outside of tight end covers, still it just opens up so many doors. So that's the name, Siobhan Rebel out of East Carolina.
Okay. I like it. Now you're going Ravel. You're letting Cam Bynum walk, so we're not spending a lot of our free agent money on the DBs.
Right.
Um, who do you like for that interior offensive line in free agency? Is that kind of the move then, right? So if we're looking to build from a draft aspect and an offseason aspect, build that defense back to front a little bit, going corner early. Financially speaking, if we're maybe not bringing back Griffin, Gilmore, you're bringing back Murphy, but maybe not buying them Griffin and Gilmore. Spend that money a little bit on the offensive line. Is that what we're thinking on that interior? And then obviously you get into the Trey Smiths and all that. But is that kind of the plan for the interior of the offensive line? You mentioned good tackles, but the guards are a little suspect.
Yeah, and center hasn't been thrilling for a long time, right? Center's been
Hmm.
okay, but we're also paying for okay, which
Right.
I was like, man, dang it, I
Bradbury
don't
just
feel
keeps
like doing that.
surviving, man.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled with anything out there on the market when it comes to interior. You know, I'm hoping I can do something in the draft, maybe trade back up, right, in the second round, right. Work something out there because there are interior guys I love in this draft in the second round. So I would love to do that possibly. Boy, you're just looking at kind of cheap replacements. Anything from
Hmm.
James Daniels to, geez, who else here? Mekhi Becton maybe
Hmm.
if he frees up.
But you're not looking to swing big with a Trey Smith, or are you just thinking that's the number one target in free agency, so we're not gonna land him? What are you, or are you off Trey Smith?
I If I had the money, I'd probably. So here's two things. To me, Trey Smith's going to be expensive. I don't think there's any question he's going to get a
Yes.
big deal, not a little one. When I watched this year the Chiefs, when this is the domino effect, when Tooney moved over to tackle, Trey Smith's play got worse,
Hmm.
which is weird because they don't play next to each other. But what happened there was Creed Humphrey now has to
Yep.
help the left guard more.
Hmm.
Trey
Okay.
Smith is on his own more. And all of a
Hmm.
sudden you're like, well, he's still solid, but do I want to give him 4 or 5 years of
Yeah.
big time money?
20
If I'm
plus.
the Vikings, probably not.
Okay.
So,
So we're maybe a little conservatively saying shoestring and bubble gumming the interior of the offensive line for another year.
yeah,
Um,
probably so.
okay, the priority is streamlining this defense. So then that brings me to Dallas
Yes.
Turner. Um,
Yeah.
Rotational player, rookie year. Wasn't out there every play. We have several free agents. You mentioned on the interior offensive line, Bullard and Tillery, edge rusher Patrick Jones is a free agent. Um, what do you see as Dallas Turner's role for 2025, and how does that help this streamline process?
So I love Dallas Turner. I was glad they drafted him. The kind of one of the storylines out there is that, well, he just didn't play a lot because he's similar in body type and play style to Van Ginkel, and so that's why he just didn't get to play a lot.
Hmm.
What was he? Dallas Turner was 300 snaps this year. But boy, when you go up to get a guy like that, you kind of expect more, to be honest. And I was a little surprised he didn't get on the field a little bit more than that this year. So especially in pass coverage, you saw him back there at Alabama in his second to last season. I think he got 85, 90 snaps in pass coverage, like legit pass coverage that year. He didn't get as many in his final year, maybe, I don't know, 30, 40 snaps in legit, like, not that he wasn't just out there, he was legit covering guys, right?
Hmm.
Carrying
Hmm.
running backs to second levels and stuff like that. So to me, if they're not going to use him at edge because they got Van Ginkel sitting out there and kind of taking up that, then why not drop him out there in space at linebacker some and let him get aggressive in this Flores system in space more? That I want to see more from Dallas Turner next year than what I got this year. I mean,
Hmm.
300 snaps is not it, man.
Yeah.
Like it's not like quarterback. It's like, yeah, we just kind of eased him in. It's like, man, come on, you got an aggressive Flores defense here. I get that there's some complicated stuff going on, but dang it, Dallas Turner played for Alabama for 2 or 3 years, right? He ought to be able to handle a lot of this, and they just didn't never do it. So, I want to see more out of Turner next year for sure.
Yeah, you almost wonder with this turnover. This would be a good this is time for a good plug and a good question for our buddy John Boyd of Bite Size and your co-host Unnecessary Roughness. If they can switch to a 4-3 this offseason, they were such a I mean they're
Yeah.
technically a 3-4, but they're such an amoeba defense
Mm-hmm.
that you wonder with two outside corners being free agents, one of your safeties, and a couple of your down defensive linemen, because Van Ginkel and Jonathan Renard were those starting 3-4 outside linebackers who stand up, but they essentially are defensive ends, right? But they're outside
Right.
linebackers.
Right.
Um, you wonder if you switch to a 4-3, if those guys can put their hand in the dirt. You have Harrison Phillips there. They probably have somebody else that can play a 4-3 defensive tackle, and if not one of those guys, they could probably re-sign cheaply. Um, and then you've got Cashman, and you've got Turner as a 4-3 outside linebacker. You're playing him in space, but you can also blitz him a little bit. And then I mean, I don't know who the other backer would be. I mean, you could even say it's Metellus, or you could say Metellus and Harrison Smith are your safeties, you know, and you plug in Ravel at one corner, Byron Murphy at another corner. Oh, Ivan Pace when he comes back from injury, if he's your other linebacker with Cashman and Turner, and then you got Metellus and Smith at safety, Ravel and
Yeah,
Murphy at corner. You bring back one of the old guys to play outside in nickel formations. Um, I wonder if a 4-3 switch could be in the works to get Turner, because listen, the reason you have 4 draft picks is you traded a bunch of these picks to get Dallas Turner.
right, right.
So if you don't want to feel the hit of only having 4 draft picks in 25, you need to get Turner on the field.
Hmm.
Um, so that's why I was wondering where is his mix in here. But um, so my last question for the Vikings, and I think I know what you'll say to this, but where does the if it's not going to be at Darnold, if it's not going to be on Trey Smith, where's the bulk of that free agent money going to go?
For me, and let me pull up my own free agents again. Part of it's going to go to Byron Murphy. Okay,
Right.
that's probably about 14, 15 a year, maybe
Mm-hmm.
16 a year. So that's part of it right there. Trying to remember who else. Maybe Griffin a little bit, but he wouldn't be much. But
No,
I would love to go out and get another guy. So another
another
cover
corner.
guy.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would eat up, I don't know, another 16, 17 a year, right? So that's
Okay.
about 30 of it on two,
But you're
on
looking at
keeping
corners.
Murphy and getting another guy. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. All right. My last team of the night. My last team of the night is the Chicago Bears. Um, with the release of Gerald Everett and DeMarcus Walker, which I found a little surprising, but Gerald Everett and DeMarcus Walker, I'm up to about 69 million in effective cap space. I also have the option to move on from safety Kevin Byard and save an additional 7 if I really need it, because I am looking to spend big this offseason. The first thing I'm throwing money at, is Trey Smith, is Ben Bredesen, is Josh Myers, 2 of the 3 guys we've mentioned tonight. Because if that can be my starting interior offensive line for the next 2, 3 years, I'm all for it.
okay.
Give me a veteran center for Caleb Williams. Say, Caleb,
Yeah.
sorry, we shouldn't have made you call protections your rookie year. That's our bad as an organization. But our new coaching staff is here, and we're going to take a lot off your plate. Um, so we're getting Josh Myers. He's going to handle that for you. We're also going to bring in Trey Smith and Ben Bredesen, because now what that does is free up a lot of what I need to do in the draft. I can do a lot of other stuff. So edge rusher was already like maybe a pseudo need with 10 overall, and now they do release DeMarcus Walker, and you're like, wow, we really need another edge rusher.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I can do that. I feel like I could do another defensive back if I want to do that here. Um, and if I miss out on, let's say, Myers specifically, because Smith and Bredesen are my priority. Myers I would also like. I would overpay for him, but he's my third option among those, because then I could go with a Bradley Bozeman or a Ryan Kelly on a 1 year deal, and
Okay.
I could draft a
Right.
guy in the mid rounds at center. But if I go 3 for 3 on those interior offensive linemen, I can go edge in the first round, or I can look at the DBs. Um, I like in terms of an edge rusher. I mean, take your pick. Michael Williams, Jalen Walker, one of the Georgia guys would be the preference at that point in the draft. Um, if you wanted to talk me into Mike Green from Marshall, if you're a real James Pierce guy, we'll we're looking at edge rusher there at 10. Um, what I would really like to do, what would be really interesting, is if Will Johnson falls, take Will Johnson, or if Malachi Starks is there, take Malachi Starks. And
Okay.
then I like those edge rushers on day 2, both Ohio State guys, Princely Human, Milan, who we've mentioned. Um, because 10 is kind of that weird spot. But if Walker or Williams, one of the Georgia guys, are there at 10, um, I like that. Obviously, pass catchers are also in the mix for this team. Keenan Allen likely gone free agency. Wasn't quite the incubator system for Caleb Williams as we thought. So once I get into the mid rounds, that's where I'm looking at pass catchers. I'll take another swing at an offensive lineman here. This is where I'll get my young guy, maybe a developmental left tackle, um, maybe a Charles Grant from William and Mary, something like that in the mid rounds. Um, but then I'm looking at tight ends, maybe a blocking tight end, like Taylor out of LSU. Um, maybe I start looking at running backs here. Maybe this is a Judkins late in the third round. Maybe this is a Caleb
Who are you?
Johnson. I'm Ben Johnson, baby. I took Jahmyr Gibbs at 12 when I could have had John Robinson at 7. I don't know what this guy's thinking. Um, I'm because listen, DeAndre Swift, man, what did Ben Johnson do when he became the play call? He got DeAndre Swift up out of there. Um, DeAndre Swift might not belong for the Bears. So, yeah, I'm looking at these running backs in the middle of the draft, but I'm starting the draft with looking at maybe some DBs, looking at some edge rushers, really get that defense back into shape. Um, assuming I can hit on my free agents on the offensive line.
All right. I actually really like this. I really like this. You're talking my language here when you talk offensive line, and twice as much when it's the Chicago Bears. Okay, um, to me, this would be a place to pay Trey Smith, right? This would be the spot. You need something here, so I love that. Um, I really like that. Bringing in Josh Myers here at center, I wouldn't mind a little bit of an overpay here because again, you mentioned it with a veteran there for Caleb Williams to work off of. I love that. So, and then that does free you up to take advantage of the defensive linemen in this draft. So I really like that as well. I like all of that. I am a little surprised you're interested in defensive backs because I kind of like this group, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't move off of that. So I like Kyler Gordon. I like Jalen Johnson. I like Kevin Byard pretty good. I like who else? I'm missing somebody back there.
Tyreek Stevenson, he ended up having an up and down year last year, but I do like him overall. And I like this
Yeah.
DB group. This
Okay.
is more that talent there at 10. Let's say
Okay.
if let's say if Walker and Williams go 8 and 9 to the
Mm-hmm.
Panthers and Saints. I don't actually I wouldn't want to go Mike Green at 10. I wouldn't want to go James Pierce at 10.
Okay.
So if Walker and Williams go, and then that means that Starks and Johnson are there at 10, I'd rather do that
Okay.
and then go with one of those edge guys at 10. It's more about that. It's more about I would prefer the edge guys in the second round and the DBs in the first round. Because yeah, I don't need to take a swing on a Malik Harrison or Ezra Thomas, right? Because I have
Right.
guys. But if I
Right.
could get one of those blue chip guys
Okay.
in the first round, it's more about the blue chip talent than the positional need, I think, for me.
And that's an old trick I've done for years, right? So I love that too. That's something. It's like, yeah, I don't need a guy. I've got guys,
Hmm.
but no, if I can get a real guy here, what like a Will Johnson or even a Malachi Starks, whatever guy we like, then yeah, okay, that makes total sense. I'm all in on that as well. And then not quitting on offensive line, kind of rejuvenation back there in those later rounds. Yeah, I love that too, man. Like, don't just because we've seen teams do this, right? They sign a
Hmm.
couple of guys to a position group, and they don't draft for that position group. It's
Right.
like, no, wait a second, keep that younger pipeline going. If you hit on a couple of these guys, and if you're developing them, then in a couple of years, when those free agents get a little old or expensive, you can move off of them and hand it over to the younger guys. It's we see the smart organizations do more of that, and some of the others not so much. So I really like this for the Bears. Seemed like I had a question, but I don't remember what it was. Oh, I know what it was. Wide receiver.
Mm.
I would love to jolt wide receiver a little bit, like you said. Well, you said middle rounds, right? Same
Hmm.
kind of a well we've been
Yeah.
dipping into. You
Yeah.
looking for a bigger guy or a fast guy?
I am looking for someone that can win downfield. And I
Okay.
haven't truly worked out who that is yet.
Okay.
Um, but if in my ideal world, I've got Roma Dunze as like technically my X, right? My backside guy. And I've got DJ Moore as my Z running my gadgety type plays. Um, I'm looking and maybe it's a big slot, but I'm looking for somebody that can just win downfield. So either one of those smaller speed guys or a big jump ball guy if you got him. But I'm looking for a downfield target.
A guy I kind of like there with those two second round picks because I think we got 39 and 41 if I'm looking at this right is Alec Ayomanor out of Stanford. Again, not
Hmm.
he's 6'2", so
Hmm.
he's not a
Hmm.
huge guy, but a very kind of a
Can win
polished
downfield.
receiver
Hmm.
who wins down there. Hey, again, not 30 and 40 yards necessarily, more in the 15 to 25-yard range. He does win a lot, creates his own separation, you know. But okay, that's it. I like
All right. Our final team, Ben. What do you got for the
it.
Detroit Lions?
Detroit Lions coming up here. This is admittedly a little bit scattered, but I just felt like that kind of fits what Detroit sometimes does anyway. I gotta say, I love what Detroit does. I more than I ever thought I would. They have just become one of my favorites here. I love it, you know. So just mad respect not only to Campbell for creating a culture, but for them being able to bring in coordinators that really steps things up when he needed it. Boy, did he need it, but they did it. And then also to the general manager for, man, putting these things together. You know, I mean, it's just been a lot of wins. So anyway, here we go. Where do I start out? Let me start with cap space. $50 million in cap space. That
Hmm.
surprised me. I did not know that they
Yeah.
had that.
Yep. Good drafting. They got a lot
Yes,
of dudes still playing on rookie deals. Hmm.
they do, and that'll run out. But again, you don't have to pay all these guys. You know,
Right.
if you pay who you want to, you let the others walk. You trust that you can continue to draft and develop, and they can.
Hmm.
They've shown
Hmm.
it. So
Hmm.
50 million in cap space, a big, 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 big win there. Carlton Davis, free agent. You can get him at, I don't know, 3 years, 13, 14, $16 million a year. That wouldn't be bad. Kevin Zeitler, I think getting maybe a little long in the tooth, but you can bring him back for another year or two. You don't have to do a long term commit with him.
Hmm.
And then on, I'm
On
sorry, I always butcher
Wuzurike.
this name. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yep.
Good job.
Hmm.
Again, wouldn't cost much to bring him back at defensive tackle. Those are your three big ones, really.
Hmm.
If you brought back all three guys, I mean, you're looking at what, 25 of your $50 million. I wouldn't necessarily bring back all three, but
Hmm.
that's very easily done. Um, they've got their first and second round draft picks. They've got a fourth round pick, and then they got a collection of sixes and sevens back down there. Let's talk about needs. Cover corners. I still think they need cover corners with without
Hmm.
Carlton Davis. Love their safeties, and Brian Branch can cover as a safety. Like he can
Hmm.
legit
Hmm.
solid cover back there. And who's the other safety back there?
Melifonwu and Kirby Joseph.
Kirby Joseph. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
Joseph back there. I mean, they
Hmm.
they won at safety. Hats
Hmm.
off to Detroit. They are
Oh yeah.
winning at safety.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but I would love to add over the next two seasons, off seasons, add cover guys back there. Again, it
Hmm.
just gives your defensive coordinator so much more flexibility when he doesn't feel like he has to do certain things to cover up for that. So um, I want to go cover corners here and speed at edge. We know about Hutchinson on one side, and was Preston Smith, I think, was the vet they brought in on the other side. I might be getting the name
No,
mixed
that
up.
was he got hurt right away too from the
Yeah.
Saints.
Anyway, and I apologize to our audience. I should have that written down, but I don't. So they've got the veteran on the other side as well. But speed at edge. I'm not just looking for a guy here for the Lions. I want speed guys off the edge to kind of complement Hutchinson here. So,
Marcus Davenport.
all right. Well, now there was another guy too, right? I think.
I don't know. That was all I got.
Yeah. All right. Hey, we're so deep in. I'm gonna look it up real quick here just to satisfy my own little thing here.
Because Preston Smith went to the Steelers.
Yeah.
Hutchinson got hurt.
Zadarius Smith. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Zadarius
Okay.
Smith. Yeah, sorry, I had the wrong Smith. My apologies. But I want speed at edge. I really do. So give me some speed, guys. I got a few we'll get to. Note number one: if Christian Mahogany is ready, and I think he might be. I liked him coming out of Boston College. I think he
Hmm.
might be ready. The O line should be great again.
Hmm.
But I want to see the Lions invest in their strengths. This is something you've mentioned more than once.
Hmm.
They're really good at drafting and developing offensive line. So don't stop that. Somewhere in this draft, you need to keep that pipeline going here, okay? Because the guys you got on offensive line are going to age out here eventually. So, why wait until it's a need? Go ahead and keep that up if you can. After that, when it comes to this draft, they can afford to go best player available. They can look for their kind of guys. And if their kind of guy pops up, even if it's not a need, they can grab him. They're that good now, They're just that good. So that's really kind of the feel there. Here's the prospects. I would love to add Mike Green. here off of edge. I don't think he's
Mm-hmm.
going to be there, quite
Mm-hmm.
honestly, but
Mm-hmm.
would love to add Mike Green here from Bowling Green off the edge. I would love to add Ezaraku. I mentioned him before off the edge. Those are really two kind of the two speed guys who might be sitting somewhere
Mm-hmm.
in the places they're drafting. I would love to add Jahad Campbell. You know, you and I talked about him off air, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he is. I don't have a strong opinion of him as being what other people are saying he is, but I still think he's a good football player, and I
Mm-hmm.
really feel like he fits the Detroit culture. So I would love to just roll him right in
Mm-hmm.
here. Maybe not in the first round, but maybe that second round. Shamar Stewart, again, a guy we've already mentioned. I would love to add him. And then when it comes to those cover guys, some of the same groups, but Barron, Ravel, Porter, I would love
Mm-hmm.
to add into those cover guys back there. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for cover guys, speed of edge, and then it's just best player available because I think we're in a position to do that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about those same three free agents you mentioned. Zeitler, Davis, and Onwuzurike, because those are my three like positions to note. Um, in terms of getting an interior defensive lineman, um, to help the defense line from that aspect. But, if you bring all three of those guys back, that gives you a safety net, and then you can draft on top of it. Um, I think going with either a corner or an edge first and then doing the other one second makes sense. I think you've drafted and developed the offensive line, so I think you can do a mid-round guy there, whether or not you bring Zeitler back, because you need to fill that guard spot, whether it's Mahogany, whether it's draft pick, whether it's Zeitler. Um, Free agency, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna bring those guys back, we've done this long enough now. I'm sure the viewers know, and the listeners know.
Yeah,
You maybe are probably looking at another corner with some of that extra free agent money if you want, and then you
yeah.
can lower that need in the draft. Where are you at with Ennis Rakestraw? Obviously Terrion Arnold was the first round pick last year. The Lions were the other team in the draft that double dipped at corner, not quite as famously as it worked out for the Eagles. Um, but Arnold was good. Rakestraw played 8 games, didn't really get a start, got hurt. He just like, yeah, he's in the mix, but obviously you're talking about bringing back Carlton Davis and drafting a guy, so it's not a Rakestraw as our number two corner or anything. Where are you at with Rakestraw? Last year's what, second round pick, I think.
Yeah, he was. I I've always liked him. I've never loved him. Kind of an unfortunate first year, right?
Mm-hmm.
We really could have used somebody back there in the secondary by the end of the year, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
darn it, it just didn't work
Mm-hmm.
out. He's still in the mix. There's no question about it. We're not gonna draft a guy in the second round when we need cover guys, and we still need cover guys. And when he got injured in year one,
Right.
we're not moving on or anything. He's in the mix, but we ain't gonna. We're also not gonna quit upgrading that position for sure.
Yeah. This line's what I mean. It's a good plan. Bring back those three veterans. You can afford them. Then double down with the draft picks. I think the names you said all make sense. This is a little like the Ravens one. We kind of started in the same way. Like,
Right.
uh, it's a good team. You keep the team together. You add to the things they're already good at. You try to fill some gaps here and there, but double up with free agents and draft picks, and you roll into next year. The main thing is just how does it all play out in January. So the offseason stuff not quite as fun for some of those teams, but
Right.
no, I think it's a solid plan. Ben, anything else for you as we wrap up this first War Room series of draft season?
Thank you, everybody, for hanging on. If you're still here, I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, we are certainly still here. I'm sure we have a couple sickos here with us on YouTube or on the pod that are still here. My computer is officially almost not here with us anymore, though. So we're gonna wrap this thing up. Thank you all so much. Thank you for anybody watching on YouTube. If this is the first time seeing any of our videos, if this is your first time seeing part of the Simon and Friends podcast, first time seeing the War Room series, we hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with content on the YouTube channel every single week moving forward through draft season. We have mock drafts coming. We have odds on Commanders with Ben and Robertson Vire covering the Commanders all off season. And we'll have this War Room series coming out every other week as well. If you're with the podcast, As always, thank you all so much for listening to the Simon and Friends podcast. We'll be back covering the draft, covering free agency all the way through the off season as well. So make sure you are tuned into that. Make sure you subscribe to both the channel and the pod. Make sure you're checking out all the other pods as well. So for Ben, for Simon, for Box Score Network, and the Simon and Friends podcast, thank you all so much. Have fun and be safe out there.